welcome back to another conversation. Excited to be here with Pastor Mark Eastep,
thanks,
New
man.
Collective Church. Mark shared a message this weekend, kind of a cultural moment, kind of a series that you're in at New Collective, and excited to share that at Highlands as well. And really talking about two key questions. Number one, how did we get here, right? When you look at any moment in culture, how did we get here? And then how do we navigate where we are?
Yes.
And so you kind of use the story in Daniel 3 of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and King Nebuchadnezzar and kind of walked through really that whole chapter to get to some places of understanding where they were in culture and then what are they going to do about it, right? And it's a great example of people who engage in a cultural moment, right? They're engaged.
Yes.
They do get thrown in the fire, you know, spoiler, in case you didn't know that, you know. So if you've grown up in church, been to like, Sunday school as a child, children's church, you learn a lot. It's a great story, which is kind of scary actually for children. When you
now
think
that
about
you mentioned it, right?
It's actually not encouraged. It's kind of like Noah's Ark. It's like, there's a lot of carnage there, you know? I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but So just walk us through a little bit about through the beginnings of that story and how you kind of are defining those cultural moments. Sure,
yeah. So those are two questions that I regularly get asked, and I think those are two questions that really in any cultural moment that people want to know about.
Sure.
And that is, how do we get here? And oftentimes when people ask that question, they're not like maybe excited. They're asking that for more like, hey, I don't really understand what's happening in the world, right? It's like, hey, what's going on? And then, how do we navigate here? People want to, for sure, if you're a Jesus follower, you find yourself asking, okay, as culture shifts and changes and moves more rapidly than it has in the past, how do we navigate that? And there's a lot of tension there with that. So, when I look at these guys and I look at this story, it creates for me a great opportunity because obviously we are not them and they are not us. I would not suggest that at all, but what they are certainly really, really doing a great job at, or did a great job at, was navigating their cultural moment, right? Holding these things in tension and in balance with one another, considering all of the changes in culture, and they were really as exiles uprooted and planted into a completely different culture. And so, and it was also a culture that was changing, that was rapidly changing. And in that scenario in Daniel chapter 3 was changing again, right? As King Nebuchadnezzar's like, hey, I've got a new gold statue. We're going to put this at the center of culture. We're going to aim everyone toward this and worship of that. And so, it was a changing moment. So I knew there was a lot for us to be able to glean from those guys.
And so, at the beginning of the story, King Nebuchadnezzar really puts off some positive vibes about, hey, look how cool this statue is. Sure. You should come worship it. I'll send all the high officials and magistrates and all these treasurers. They should all come and worship me. It will be very good. And then it really kind of takes a turn where it's like, also, if you don't do that, I will kill you.
A really subtle final comment there. By the way, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to want to do this, but if you don't do this, we're going to throw you in the fire.
There's music, right?
It's like if you're not already down, a part of this before this, you probably should be now.
It's like everyone coming to Coachella, and if you don't come and worship me, you will die. That's stressful, right?
Yeah. And it's a super tense moment.
It makes me think too that sometimes there are things in our culture that someone presents that feel maybe good in the moment or feel like, well, this could be okay. And then you realize pretty quickly, maybe it's not going to be okay, right? Maybe there's going to be some difficulty that comes. That happens for everybody.
For sure, right? And one of the things I wanted to identify with King Nebuchadnezzar, that he's brilliant. I mean, like, he's a brilliant mind. He's a brilliant creator of culture, even as awful as all those things sound, because what he recognized is that he really understood strategic messaging before we ever talked about strategic messaging as a thing, because he identifies those who are influencers, people with titles, who already perceive themselves as being important, and now he's going to fuel that with, actually, you're even more important now. You're so important that I'm going to include you in this first, and then other people then come around that, because there's this vibe of, oh, you're in. This is an exclusive thing. But then when we quickly saw, it wasn't really such an exclusive thing. It was something he was intending to move from a concept to creating culture, and putting his not just the statue, but really all that represents at the center of it. His ideals, his desires to create a different future, all at the center of that. And so he understood strategic messaging long before that was really identified as a sociological thing. And as a part of that entire situation, he understands targeting, triggering, and then threatening was the way that I like to break that down. It's like, hey, if targeting you to make you feel, hey, this is important, this is a story you want to be a part of, triggering you to be like, hey, this is actually going to meet like a craving or a need. And then, you know, if those things are not enough, right, then we're going to use fear tactics to be able to communicate with you.
If I haven't boosted your ego, giving you a reason to come. Also, there's threats, right?
Right. So. Which we have to have some awareness around, like, how did we get here to this cultural moment? There's not people threatening us in that way. There's a huge amount of threat around using fear tactics to be able to sell products, deliver information, get you to click on, news headlines. Right? I mean, it's a huge part.
It's incredible how, when you think about that when you really break down what's going on, it's like, man, people that don't know me are telling me that I'm going to miss this. Like, you don't know me. It's like, this will change your life. This next thing, 5 easy tips to fix everything. And, it's like, okay, that sounds good. Don't miss this.
Yeah.
Like, that could be every email marketing headline.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Don't miss
right.
this.
Yeah,
like,
you're afraid not to read it. Oh, sure.
It's a sale on, shorts. And you're like, oh, that's not that huge, right? But they're kind of digging into that, right? It's very time sensitive. I can't miss this sale. It'll never happen again, except next week when we do it. When we do an even bigger sale. And one thing that I've even noticed is, if you visit a website, let's say I go look at a bag or something, which I'm prone to do for sure. And maybe even put something in your cart, you kind of leave, you come back, amazing. The next day you get an email, it's like, hey, 50% off this week only. And it's like, is it, or is it just for me, right? Are they targeting me to get me to do something because it'll make me feel better? And here's the thing about all of those things in culture, good or, I'm not just saying, oh, these are bad.
No.
This is good.
It's
the movement of culture that says, if you have this, you're good. But the reality is none of that is actually fulfilling. Right? Ultimately, the best or the worst is not going to fulfill you in any meaningful way.
Right.
And you're going to be left with, nothing. Right?
Yeah.
It's not going to sustain. And so King Nebuchadnezzar makes this kind of decree. He demands they come. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, word gets out that they're not coming and they're not going to bow.
Yeah.
And then King Nebuchadnezzar has some words for them, right? Which is, you have to do this.
He's angry.
And then there really is a shift in the story where they say, you know what? We're not going to do this. And we recognize the cost, right? It was not ignorance that led them there.
No.
Like, oh man, I didn't even think about dying. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We could die. And so how do you get to that place? That's kind of how do you navigate here? You recognize that something is a certain way. And then what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. So the way that the line in the story that I thought was so crucial is when they report about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and how they're responding to the decree is that they pay no attention to it. Now, part of that we think about paying no attention means to ignore something altogether, and that's somewhat of the case. But what I wanted to be able to really address is the power of attention, like what it is that we are giving our attention to, and their response was an indicator of they had a different attention. Like what it was they were paying attention to was something different from what the rest of the cultural norm and cultural moment was giving their attention to, because they seemed to really be unmoved in that moment. And so, but at the same time, the tension there is that we tend to respond when we don't like what's happening in culture in one of two ways. We tend to war against it. And this is like, in the church, in this Christian moment in history, we tend to war against it, demonize it. Everything in culture is bad. Everything in culture is evil. Everything in culture is wrong. You can't, buy clothes at a normal store. We got to sew them at our house. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't do it, but like you sew, like you can like go that direction. So like we have to war against it. And we have to demonize everyone and everything, or we just blindly accept it. Where it's like, sure, that seems fine. That doesn't seem like it's harmful or somewhere.
Okay.
And so I just blindly accept the decree. But these guys have a different type of attention. And so they're faithful, they're consistent. They were the same before the decree that they were after the decree. Mm-hmm. And that for me is like they're so focused in on who God is and who they are that it's like, hey, we're not going to be aggressive, but we're not going to be passive. We're going to keep serving. We're going to keep working. And so they're still doing their job, which, by the way, is connected to government and connected to the king, who they obviously disagree with.
Which is how he finds out about it, right?
Right.
He's like, these people.
Yeah, they're still serving. And what they demonstrate for us, I can serve you, but I'm not going to worship you. I can disagree with you, but I still care about you. I'm still going to work hard and do a good job just because I don't like everything that's going on around me is not going to affect me. And so they demonstrate some legit fortitude.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but the internet is not a kind place. Right? And I
have been aware.
And as you were kind of developing this, that thought there's this even keel, right, of that response. And I think so many times, and all of us are guilty of this, you hear something, you're so quick to fly off the handle, and you pick up your phone and you're like, I will tweet about this. I will put a status on Facebook and I will win.
Yes.
And I've done that before. And you just get slammed with comments, honestly. I don't know that I've ever accomplished anything great by making a statement like that on Facebook. But at the same time, just going with something doesn't help either, right? Mm-hmm. Just saying, it'll be fine, right? Yeah. There's a counting of the cost, right? The Bible has a lot of examples of that about a builder, right? Jesus talks about this in the New Testament that counts the cost before he starts building it. Yeah. It's not just like, it'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
I don't have enough material to build this thing, And so culture forever is selling us something that's not going to sustain the longevity of that, right? The promise is high.
Yeah.
You will be smarter, be faster, be stronger, be better, be set up forever. Yeah. The reality is you will have to keep coming back and have to keep coming back. So if we're not aware, we're going to be taken advantage of. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understand that as well. So then, flash forward to kind of the penultimate moment here. He throws them in the fire.
Yes.
They don't. They say, hey, whether you do this or not, we trust that God's going to be faithful, which is an incredible statement. And you think about that in reality, it's like, can I say that?
Man.
That's so hard. And we read that story with this excitement of of course, because God say, but they did not know that.
No,
there was no promise of safety.
Right. And they're super chilled about it the whole time. Yeah. They're very respectful.
Yeah.
They're very,
they still call him your majesty.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
You're still a king.
Yes.
Also, we're not going to do that.
Yes.
And so really where you landed, I think, is really important for us today. And that is that sometimes we go through these sort of trials or whatever you want to call them, difficulties in our life for the benefit of other people.
Man.
Because the focus gets shifted from the gold statue that's praising Nebuchadnezzar to the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible scene, right? And anytime I talk about difficulties in life, and I'm trying to inspire people and encourage people and whatever else, there is still a part of me that just my heart breaks because I recognize I can give a message like this and try to inspire people and encourage people, and it still sounds cliche, where it's just like, man, I know there's a purpose or there's some reason or there's some corny, cheesy thing, and I didn't have enough time in the message. I could be there for days at a time to just also spend some time kind of working through that. But in the scene, that's the thing that I wanted to be sure that people could see, though, is that all of those officials with all of those titles, and then all of these people from all these different backgrounds that are identified as coming to this moment around this gold statue when we get to the end of this scene, and they have been rescued out of the fire. The fourth man steps into the fire with them, rescues them. They come out unharmed. In that moment, people shift their attention.
Yeah.
So the power of attention shifts, and they come around Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they want to know, okay, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And that's in a number of different ways. This is not the cultural norm. This is not a normal way of dealing with these kind of circumstances.
Sure.
And they come around them, and they're able to deliver a different message. Anytime there's a strategic messaging of culture, there's an even more powerful strategic messaging that God can take in any cultural moment and redeem that. That's one of the things I didn't really get to talk about either. I have to trim really to get all this down. But that's one of the things I want for people to know. You don't have to demonize it. You don't have to demonize the culture and then try to feel better about that. there's always a way in which God is able to redeem even the strategic messaging that was not good.
That's good.
To be able to bring people toward himself.
And really that's the message of the gospel, right? Is that Jesus steps into, right? He is Emmanuel. He's God with us. Mm-hmm. He's not far away, right? He's not like, hey, good luck, see you later. He's like, I will come into your mess. I will come into the fire with you, right? There's a physical representation of that in this story, which is wild. But then there's also this spiritual moment, I think, that all of us can experience, whether you're actually in the fire. We all find ourselves in a difficult place. And maybe you put yourself there. Maybe your actions caused that. Maybe something happened around you. Maybe you believed a lie that didn't pan out, but ultimately God is always in the business of redeeming his people for his glory and our good. And I thought this was just a great message.
Man, thank you.
And I think if you missed this weekend, we'd love for you to check out our website, hf.church. You can subscribe to our podcast and hear the whole message because it's really good. And I'm glad we got to really even dig into this deeper because there's so much in this passage as we kind of look at cultural moments to step in with boldness and with faith, not in anger and hatred, but not in blind trust either. Really, we trust in God and his goodness for us. And that's something that we can trust in. And so I hope that this conversation was encouraging. Man, we could go for hours.
Yeah, very true.
We could. So maybe we'll come back and do part 2 of this another time. But thank you all so much for being here today. I hope this was encouraging. You can find more videos on our YouTube channel, and we'd love to engage with you there and check out some of our content. So thanks for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.